Welcome to the Norris Group Real Estate Podcast, a show committed to bringing you insights from thought leaders shaping the real estate industry. In each episode, we'll dive into conversations with industry experts and local insiders, all aimed at helping you thrive in an ever-changing real estate market, continuing the legacy that Bruce Norris created, sharing valuable knowledge, and empowering you on your real estate journey. Whether you're a seasoned pro or a newcomer, this is your go-to source for insider tips, market trends, and success strategies. Here's your host, Craig Evans.
Let me ask you, as you get started into it, do you have any mentors? Did you have people that were guiding you along the way, or were you just winging it the whole time?
I want to say, obviously, in the beginning, it was just me trying to figure it out. And I would keep on hitting walls, dead end walls. Because you can read a book, you can hear a tape, tape, right? And all that would have been out, right? And all that would have been outdated, right? Or it was somebody in a different state, different county. There was a lot of information, but nothing worked at the time. Right? All that was new. The whole foreclosure thing was new. Nobody really wanted to buy. At the time, the government was giving you $8,000 to buy a house, right? Like they were giving you money to buy a house. So that was weird too. So there was nothing that I can see and read to figure it out. So I had to look for somebody, right? That was the next best thing. So at the time in the Inland Empire, there was a guy that was doing it in his own way. So, okay, well, do I just get somebody that's mediocre or do I go to the top guy? So I just went for the top guy. A lot of phone calls, a lot of persistence. But he was actually the one that assisted me with getting my first rental. And a few years later, he was the one that assisted me with the flips. So I was able to learn a lot from him. But as you may know, when you're starting off and building your own empire, you're going, right? So this guy was going. He was going. So it was difficult to catch him. But once I did, he was more than willing to share all the information, which I appreciate to this day.
So I'm interested to hear, who is this guy?
So a lot of your listeners may know it's Ricardo Acevedo.
Okay.
So he actually was at Century 21.
Okay.
And he opened up his own brokerage.
Okay.
He has his own building now in Ontario. So you can see at the time that he was going. He was just extremely aggressive in the real estate industry.
Okay.
And I respected it so much to where, okay, if he doesn't answer my first 5 calls, he'll answer my 6.
Right.
Which he would. Right. And I understood what he was doing because I got the sense to where that's where I'm going to be. Right. And unfortunately, we do get caught up because it's happened to me where people, reach out and I'll tell them I'm going to call them back or I'll tell them I'm going to shoot them a text and days will pass by. It's not like we do it on purpose. It's just we're caught up. We're working.
Yep.
Right. So I respected that from him. But when I was able to catch him, which I respected even more, he was more than willing to share everything he knew.
So I know you've got good history with the Norris Group.
Right.
I have, through kind of studying and prepping and getting ready for this, I understood that you had done some stuff with Aaron.
Right.
Loved Aaron, good friend of mine. Big reason why I now own the Norris Group. Him and Bruce are just wonderful friends. But from what I understood, you did went through like an investor roadmap with Aaron. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I don't remember what year I sat down with him and Joey, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
Right. And it was when I
won't
was.
hold that against you if you sat down with Joey also now.
But being new into the industry, obviously, you call yourself a real estate investor or that title, but there's so many different aspects of being a real estate investor. So that's where I was lost. And I knew the new Norris Group would have a lot of information on their website. They would Bruce would host he wouldn't host, but he would be part of meetups that I would go to at the time. So I had set up a meeting, and it was Aaron and Joey that pretty much, well, Aaron, that laid out that roadmap of what I truly should be doing.
Okay.
So he actually gave me the step by step, if you will, right,
Yep.
of where I need to start focusing on and the steps I need to be taking in order to actually start this as a real business, right? Because prior to then, I was getting deals, and I wouldn't say they were easy, but Ricardo would send them to me, and it was pretty much a mirror of everything that he was doing. So in the speed, it was difficult to actually catch every single aspect of acquiring a deal and selling the deal, right? And everything in between, right? That's where it was a little, that's where I was a little lost, right? So sitting down with Aaron, he pretty much laid out everything that was getting done already. I just didn't know in what steps, time frames, who I should be, associating with. And I want to say he was actually the one that sent me to a couple of meetups, which I actually loved one of them, and I was an active participant in that one for up until they closed. So I think the biggest thing is number one, and this one I took it to heart, and I want to say I used. Well, I don't want to say I do use it even until this day. That not everybody in this industry is in there for you, right? In other words, you have to really like trust your gut, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I got out of it. Um, him sharing and him being open was also without him even saying it, but that was a roadmap of the type of people that are out there in this industry, the type of people that I want to be around with, in the industry. Him, his father, and Joey being, I want to say, the leading educators in the Inland Empire, if not Southern California or all of California. It meant a lot to me that he himself would sit down in front of me and take an hour. It might have been two, to be honest with you, and just
knowing
speak
Aaron,
to me about this.
Knowing Aaron, it probably was 2 or 3 because Aaron would
Right.
Right. He was the most selfless person out there. So
He was, and his conversation, it was just it. It was probably an hour or two, and it felt like 10 minutes.
yeah, yeah.
Great conversations, full of value. But that's pretty much what I took out of it.
So, what else did you do? You had a mentor. You obviously you went and sought out Aaron and Bruce, things like that. What else did you do to try to educate yourself?
So it was, I want to say the only thing that I did do consistently was go to these meetups, these real estate investor clubs, right? And there was one particular one in Orange County. And aside from that is actually just doing it, just getting out there and doing it. I wasn't going to know in my mind if I was learning anything until I did it for myself.
Yep.
Right. From A to Z. Once I started doing that, it felt literally the momentum felt like it was picking up. Right.
So when you first started going to clubs, what do you think the most important thing that you did early on?
I want to say the most important thing is speaking to the people, networking, but more than anything, finding that 1, 2, 3, 4 people that were actually doing it, right? And just running scenarios by them, right? Like worst case scenarios, best case scenarios, but there were people that were actually doing it. And I felt that's why I appreciated that club so much, because there were more people I felt at that club that were active as opposed to, well, let's just say non-active.
Yep.
Right.
Well,
I think that was the biggest thing.
And Carlos, let's face it, there's a lot of people that are going to clubs that are great people, and they're all desiring to get ahead and to be more successful, to reach their goals, whatever their goals may be, right?
Right.
But you said it, not everybody is out for everybody. Most people
Right.
are out for themselves. It's like, no, I'm gonna get mine, right?
Right.
And And so it's a different mindset of people when you say, hey, we really want to see the group as a whole be successful, right? So um, if we for the new listeners, or for the listeners that are listening to us that are new investors, because I know we've got those. So if you're talking to them today, what do you tell them when they're looking for a club?
So what I typically tell them, and I get that weird look, is get a feeling for it. Get a feel for it. That's because this business, I feel that you're gonna have to trust your gut a lot in it. And I think that's one of the first places that you're gonna start at, right? Because every club is different, every speaker, every environment. That's the biggest thing. It's gonna be different. Just find the one that you're most comfortable with, and just be consistent. I think that's the biggest thing too, because we jump around from club to club, go from Inland Empire Club and go to a South Bay Club, and then Downtown LA Club. They're going to be different people doing different active things, right?
Sure.
So just find that club that's in your market, the one that you feel comfortable with, and be consistent at that one.
I find it interesting. You saved and saved and saved and funded
Right.
all of your flips early in your career yourself. You use no
Right.
leverage. So why
No.
was that factor important to you?
So I'll go back a little bit. So growing up, my mom, more than anything, would always tell me, save. If you make $5, save $1. If you make $10, save $3. Whatever little bit you make, save that little. And before you know it, a month, 2 months, a year from now, it's going to be X amount. So that was already planted in my head. So I was a saver by nature. Then fast forward to what I was trying to do. I knew about, I didn't know it was called leveraging. I knew you would ask people for money. It was borrowed money. At the end of the day, you would ask people. Most of the people that I would hear this from would ask borrowed money from family members, right? And I heard so many stories of things going wrong that it just wasn't even a thought anymore. I was not going to jeopardize anybody's money for something that I quote unquote wanted to do. So since I wanted to do it, I had to fund it and I had to figure it out, because at the end of the day, if something did go wrong with the first couple of flips, it was going to be on me, nobody else. I wasn't going to jeopardize anybody's money but my own,
Yep.
right? So that was pretty much a whole force behind it, up until a few years later.
Right. So obviously you can only fund your stuff by yourself so long. So what kind of shifted and changed for you that helped you start to grow and expand your business?
Right. So I remember the property. I just don't remember what year it was. But Craig and I had a conversation, right, at the Norris group. So he and I had a conversation, and if anybody's ever spoken to Craig, he knows what he's talking about. He knows his numbers. So that was more than enough for me to listen to him and actually take what he's saying to heart, right? To where I could leverage my money and have the investors safe. How he does that was enough for me to say, okay, you know what? It's still going to be on me if this doesn't work. If an issue happens, it's on me. These people are going to be safe and their money will still be their money, right? So that first property that I leveraged, I want to say needed like $7,000 on it, right? It was turnkey pretty much when I acquired it. So all this was going on in my head before I actually pulled the trigger on the first leverage. The agent that was listening for me at the time had a buyer. This property was in Riverside, had a buyer that was looking in Riverside within that price range. So I said, okay, well, I have this property, but I haven't purchased it yet, right? I sent them pictures and they were extremely interested. Long story short, that was the first property that I leveraged. Once we closed escrow, it was like a 3-day rehab, right? And I want to say 2 days after, they went to go see it, and obviously they had to talk amongst themselves, and they ended up purchasing it, right? So that's where I was able to see it was a baby step,
Okay.
right? To see how it would be like leveraging, what the payment was going to be, what I was going to expect from them, and what now the leverage company or the Norris group, what they would expect from me. And since I saw everything that had worked out so well, after that, I kept on doing it. Every now and then, if there's a deal that comes across, I'll still, it makes more sense to fund it 100%. But I want to say maybe 90 to 95% of them are leveraged now.
Sure. What kind of volume was your goal early on?
So in the beginning, I just wanted to be able to do two at the same time, right? Okay. If I did two at the same time in 1 year, I was happy, right? It was just being able to organize the teams, organize everything, and making sure the products came out in a way to where your average consumer, once they bought it, they knew it was a good product and something that took a designer or a construction team 6 months, right? But I was able to tweak that. I was going to be able to tweak everything to streamline the process, right? Having two at a time, because having two at a time, okay, then I would just copy and paste to the third one, copy and paste to the fourth one, so on and so forth. So that was a goal in the beginning, just to be able to do two. Then as that started to work, I just started to increase it, right? And it just depends on the market. You know, there's times when the market gets a little slower, a time when the market picks up. When it gets a little slower, that's the best time for me to purchase. So that's when I'll load up, right? And now we can just streamline all the properties to where once we relist them, it's a good product.
What's a good market for you? How many will you be doing at once? Kind of what's your process from a volume perspective now?
Well, right now we can handle roughly 4, starting on a 5th one today. So the way it is, 4 is a limit because of the construction crew, which is now what I'm starting to look for, pretty much more construction crews to fill in that void. But as long as we have that 4th one finishing, we're able to take on a 5th one. So that's when the rinse and repeat is today. So with the crew that I have, the most we can take on, I want to say it would be 5.
Okay, that's awesome. So tell me about Ridgewood Property Investments. Tell me, what is it? What is it that you guys do, and what is your vision for the future for Ridgewood?
Oh, great question. Thank you for asking. So Ridgewood Property Investments, it is how it says. We just invest in properties, single family homes. We fix, flip, and list, which is a quote unquote slogan of the property. So we'll buy the property, distressed. We're able to close within 7 days or less sometimes. And then we take on the construction. We fix it up, bring it up to code, bring it up to standards, make sure that property is financeable. Depending on the area, we're able to see what we can do in order to get top dollar, because that's another thing I look for. Every property that we do relist, we have to make sure that once it goes on the relist side, it is FHA compliant, which I like to call the property will qualify for an FHA loan and it will pass FHA inspections. Okay. So that's what we look at. Once a property is done, we go ahead and list it, and everything's pretty much taken quote unquote in-house. So I would be the acquisition, and I'm also the listing agent and everything in between.
So what's kind of a catalyst for you finally, or let me rephrase that. What was a catalyst for you to finally say, all right, I'm leaving all of this and I'm completely going out on my own. I'm no longer punching a clock.
Yeah. So once, I want to say it was towards the year before last that I left, I actually hired a CPA, and he was looking over all my numbers. So obviously we discussed what my goals were. So him being that person that isn't emotionally involved, that's from the outside looking in, I knew he would be fair, right? He would tell me what it was, not what I wanted to hear. So I would touch base with him every year that passed. Hey man, I'm increasing this much. I want to leave by this time. So my goal was 40, right? By 40 years old, no longer clock in and out. I want to say it happened a year sooner, which was great.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So it got to the year before last, and that's where I had sustained it for 2 years, right? The income. So the income was enough to cover not only what was going to be my lifestyle, but obviously I had to take into consideration mortgage, insurance, 401k, what I would put away aside from real estate in retirement. And it had to cover everything in order for me to be able to be comfortable in leaving. The first year could be that you get lucky, which is the way I looked at it. The second year to me was okay. Well, it wasn't luck. Obviously, there was a plan and it worked. So rinse and repeat the second year. Okay, I'm ready to do this, right? And April 15th, the tax deadline was the last time I ever walked into a W-2.
Really?
Yeah. And that was thought out too. Yeah.
So you've been in this several years now that you've been out of a job, so to speak,
Right.
working for somebody else. How are you sourcing deals now?
So today it's usually from agents on the MLS. It's easier to deal with the agents, I found, because they can always research you, right? And whenever I deal with an agent, I let them double end it, right? Because they obviously have to make an extra buck for bringing the deal to me, knowing and trusting that I'm able to close on it. So that would be one, or wholesalers. Now, when I say wholesalers, I'm not talking about these big wholesale companies.
Yeah.
I'm talking about these local market wholesalers that actually know the market that I'm in and know what numbers I need in order to purchase it.
As we talk through this, again, we have a lot of people that listen that are young investors, right? What's the one piece of advice that you would give yourself if you were starting right now?
If I was starting today,
Yeah, the young you, what do you tell you?
I would tell myself to take more calculated risks,
Okay.
not to be paralyzed by analyzing too much, and just listening to one mentor early in the beginning. Just pick one, right? I felt that I found my guy a little later, right? So just pick one earlier on.
Okay.
And what I learned today, which I was struggling with back then, is the whole consistency thing. So just be consistent. I know there's a lot going on in your early 20s, mid 20s, even late 20s for people, right? But you need to treat this like a business and be consistent, which is the biggest thing I would tell myself.
I've heard you talk about, I think this is the third time now in our talk today that you've talked about consistency. What do you think is the biggest surprise that you've had in your investment career?
I think the biggest surprise is knowing what you're actually really capable of. I think for me, that's been the biggest surprise. Trusting yourself and knowing what you're able to do after the fact.
So do you think maybe trusting yourself was maybe one of the biggest hurdles you had to overcome? Or what do you think?
I want to say so. In the beginning, if it wasn't the biggest, it was one of them. It was one of them because everything was so brand new. And the key to this business is, and I hate using this because it's been said many times in other podcasts, but being comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? But that's truly one of the keys because nothing's ever going to go smooth, right? even with the guy that does 100 flips in 6 months, they don't go smooth. You always come across problems, right? And it doesn't matter how big or small. Guess what? You're in it, and you need to figure it out. And once you are able to figure it out, not only does it improve your confidence, but it also improves your character as a person and your grit too.
Yep.
Of what you're able to accomplish.
Do you have a buy box?
I do.
All right.
And it's extremely strict, which is why.
How strict do you stick to that?
100%. If that property doesn't check off all the marks, I pass on those.
Okay.
I pass on those. Because there's certain products that are tried and proven, so I know that the risk is, I want to say almost, right? But it's non-existent. So that's why it's so strict. There are only certain type of properties in certain areas, certain locations. Even if the spread looks great on quote unquote paper, but it doesn't fit my buy box, I won't purchase those.
So did you formulate your buy box, or did a mentor help you with that? How did you come to what that looks like for you?
So what's funny, I would literally back in the day, or back at that time, I would be on Zillow and look at all the properties in certain areas. And I would see, okay, 3-1, 3-2, 3-1, 3-2, 2-1. Okay, well, the majority are 3-2s, which means these are the majority that are selling. So the success of getting rid of these properties are a lot greater than a 2-1. So that's where it all started. And Zillow really did help me out a lot, believe it or not, because I didn't have MLS access at the time.
Sure.
So I started going deeper into it, where I was able to see how long it was on the market, obviously just on Zillow, but it would give me an indicator of, okay, a 2-1 will sit longer, but a 2-1, let's say in a huge half an acre lot, will go faster, right? But it has to be in this area. Like it would have to be like in the center of Fontana, because that same property in Hesperia will sit forever. So it's just a certain buy box that those properties have to fall under.
Well,
for those reasons.
Again, Carlos, I go back to the guys that have, I shouldn't say just guys, but the people that have been successful, men and women, buying and holding, buying and flipping, new construction, regardless the measure of what you do in the investment world. I love the fact that one of the biggest things that you've hit on so many times today is the consistency. I cannot tell you how excited I've been today to listen to your story of how you started and how you grew up into a world of like, man, I can't even go play in a yard for fear of being shot, to now running your own business and like, hey, I'm trying to shoot for 5 starts at a time. That's so exciting, encouraging for me to hear, as well as just other investors starting out young and old to be encouraged by what our industry is about. So I got one last question for you. If your dream isn't big enough, if your dream doesn't scare you, it's not big enough.
Right.
So I guess my question to you is, what does your career look like in the next 5 to 10 years for you?
It scares me. It scares me. And that's 100% true. Because what I have planned is obviously something that's big, that I have no idea from now to then, right? So it's going to be learning. It's just going to be learning. So ultimately, where I want Ridgewood to be is to be a syndication to where we still buy SFRs, but now deal with commercial real estate, right? Now, when it comes to commercial, it would be the aspect of industrial and some office, which may happen sooner rather than later. So that's why it kind of scares me, because if an opportunity comes, we're going to take it, right? We're going to take it and we're going to figure it out, or get across people that have done it to assist us. Because once opportunities are there, if you don't take them, somebody else will.
Right.
And that somebody is going to be the person you're going to be reading about, seeing their success. So you just have to go out and do it. So that's what the plan is, 5 to 10 years from now, to be at that point.
That's fantastic. Well, Carlos, listen, man, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your day to spend with me, and I hope that we will get to see each other soon. I know I'll be out your way in June. Hopefully we'll meet
June 6th, right?
June 8th. June the 8th.
8th.
Yep. So we'll hopefully get to meet in person then. If you want to hear more about Carlos and understand what he's doing, feel free to check him out. And past that, we will look forward to seeing you next week at the same time. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Awesome. And thank you for having me, Craig. Appreciate it.
Carlos, thank you, my friend.
For more information on hard money loans, trust deed investing, and upcoming events with the Norris Group, check out thenorrisgroup.com. For more information on passive investing through the DBL Capital Real Estate Investment Fund, please visit dblcapital.com.
The Norris Group originates and services loans in California and Florida under the California DRE license 01219911, Florida Mortgage Lender license 1577, and NMLS license 1623669. For more information on hard money lending, go to thenorrisgroup.com and click the hard money tab.